Hello and welcome to this third video about the incident of the letter, and today we're going to learn 4 new things we can write about in order to get grades 8 and 9. So we're into the third paragraph and we're inside Utterson's room. But the room was gay with firelight. In the bottle the acids were long ago resolved. The imperial dye had softened with time as the colour grows richer in stained windows, and the glow of hot autumn afternoon on hillside vineyards was ready to be set free and to disperse the fogs of London. Insensibly, the lawyer melted. So here we've got contrasts again which emphasise the duality. The contrasts are everywhere. We've got the acid, which is harsh, has now become softened with time. Time has also made the colours in the wine, like a window, like a stained window, grow richer. We had in the earlier paragraphs this idea of the wine being trapped in the cellar, in the foundations of the house. Now it's ready to be set free. In the previous paragraph we had the fog of London drowning the city, but now the fog is going to be dispersed from London. These contrasts emphasise the duality that's in nature that Stevenson portrays through Jekyll and Hyde, but it also suggests that there is the opportunity to throw off the kind of corruption that he's been describing in middle-class men. And this story, destroying Jekyll and Hyde, nevertheless brings everything out into the open in an attempt to change society, to make us more accepting of things which are normally deemed by the church in particular to be sinful and evil and corrupt. And that's why we have this image of the wine personified as being ready to be set free. Wine, of course, is associated with a vice, and perhaps Stevenson is suggesting that all the things we see as bad vices are actually pleasures which we should be allowed to be indulged in. It's only society that tells us these things are not pleasures that we can't indulge in. And society is wrong. Society needs to change. Now, he does this by looking at the imagery again, which suggests the future is always an improvement of the past. In other words, that society is constantly changing for the better. So if we go back up to the bottle, the acids in the wine are now no longer acidic. They've been resolved into a delightful flavour. The colour of the wine is described as an imperial dye, as though made by a dictator, or the dye itself is a dictator, which had overpowered, the colour had overpowered the wine, but now it has become softened and much more enjoyable to look at. It's obviously a richer colour. And this is brought out again by this really interesting simile, as the colour grows richer in stained windows. Well, stained windows, of course, you only find in a church. And he's deliberately suggesting that the church's rules, when the church is built, and so these Christian rules about the way we should live, are imperial, they're dictatorial, they're imposed on people. But actually, over time, the understanding of what it means to be good, to live in a good way as a Christian person, changes, it becomes richer. And of course, in Stevenson's time, that change is brought about by, in many ways, the attack of the theory of evolution, which says that the Bible is no longer a black and white set of laws you have to follow. It is an attempt to explain the mind of God. And because it's an attempt, because it's full of stories, it's open to interpretation. And those interpretations are always richer, and they allow for a different understanding of what God is like, and a different understanding of what good and evil are like. So when we apply that to the novel as a whole, it's important to remember that Jekyll isn't good and Hyde isn't evil. What we've got going on here is Jekyll is a mixture of good and evil, as we all are, and Hyde is just an expression of his evil side. But if we take it a step further, there isn't necessarily much that's evil about Hyde at the beginning of the novella. He just pursues his own pleasures. He doesn't actually do anything that wrong. If you've watched my videos about how he trampled the girl, you'll actually see that he did very little damage and did very little wrong. It's the people around him who have been so vicious and vile and in fact want to murder him. So Stevenson's playing an interesting game with the idea of what evil actually is. By the end of the novel, we're asked to consider that. Was Jekyll actually evil, or was he a victim of the society in which he lived? And then we could take an alternative view. We could argue that actually progress is a drunken illusion. Things don't actually get better. And so that's revealed through the idea of the lawyer's insensibility. A hint that this perspective of warmth is actually just because he's drunk. And this dispersion of the fogs of London are not a real perspective. You know, when he goes out, the fogs are still there. Secrecy is still there. Hypocrisy is still there. Society is always going to be like this. And the Jekylls of the world will always be oppressed. So we don't know which way Stevenson's going there. I personally favour interpretation number 4 here, but there's no reason why you can't favour interpretation number 3. So an awful lot in each paragraph, as you can see. Hopefully you'll be interested in the next video. Watch out for it tomorrow.